Elias Mercer had spent most of his life drifting through the stars, far from home and far from anyone who cared to notice him. He was not a soldier, not a politician, not a hero. He was simply a salvage engineer, a man who could fix broken machines when no one else dared to touch them. And yet, it was the very skill that had earned him a reputation among certain circles, whispered in spaceports and shipping stations as the human who could breathe life into dead metal. Tonight, that skill would be tested like never before. The distress signal had been faint, almost imperceptible, picked up only because Elias's ship was equipped with an old, human-made scanner, calibrated more for stubbornness than precision. It came from the far edge of known space, a region filled with floating debris from ancient stellar wars. No one traveled there willingly. Legends told of massive battles fought centuries ago, leaving craters of wreckage and ghost signals that would confuse even the most advanced sensors. But Elias, alone in his ship, followed the faint ping anyway. He didn't know why. Curiosity, chance, or perhaps the same stubbornness that had kept him alive all these years. Hours passed as his small craft glided through a field of drifting hull fragments, twisted metal, and shattered satellites. The stars here seemed dimmer, as if the void itself resented intrusion. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed ahead. Elias squinted at the shape on his display. It was too large, too organized, to be another piece of debris. His heart beat faster. He had never seen anything like it in his life. As he approached cautiously, the enormity of the ship struck him. It was ancient, older than any human vessel, yet its design suggested elegance and power far beyond human comprehension. The hull was scarred, portions of it burned or torn, and the ship's systems flickered in irregular patterns. It looked as if a storm of stars had passed through it. Yet, despite the damage, it was alive. Barely, but alive. Elias activated his suit's external sensors and sent a soft ping into the ship's hull. There was movement. Someone, or something, was inside. His instincts screamed danger. He had no idea who or what awaited him, and yet he felt an inexplicable pull, like the ship itself was asking for help. Using the docking clamps of his salvage craft, Elias attached himself to the alien vessel. The outer airlock creaked under the strain of age and damage, but it held. He drew a deep breath and activated his helmet lights, stepping inside. The interior was dark, but he could see enough to notice the alien architecture: curved, fluid lines, luminous panels, and glyphs that pulsed faintly with power. There was a sophistication here that no human engineering had ever reached. In the central chamber, he saw her. She was lying amidst debris, her form humanoid yet distinctly alien. Her skin shimmered with subtle iridescence, and her hair seemed almost like flowing light. Despite the injuries, her posture was regal, her gaze steady, observing him with calm curiosity. There was no panic, no pleading, only patience. Elias froze for a moment. He had never encountered an alien life form directly, certainly not one of such size and apparent authority. His mind raced. Should he retreat? Amore, should he call for help? But before fear could dominate, something in him acted. Human instinct. Human stubbornness. He walked toward her, careful, cautious, yet driven by the one thing that had kept him alive through countless dangerous jobs: the need to fix what others could not. The first challenge was obvious. The life support module embedded in the chamber was flickering, sparks flying from damaged conduits. Elias's hands moved with practiced precision. He rewired circuits, replaced broken modules with the spare components, and used unconventional human logic to bypass alien engineering protocols. Each adjustment was risky. Each misstep could fry the remaining systems, or even harm the alien directly. But he persisted, guided by instinct, determination, and a deep understanding of machines. Hours passed. Time became meaningless as he worked tirelessly. Sweat dripped from his brow and his fingers grew sore and blistered. But he continued. He felt no fear now, only focus. The alien woman watched silently, occasionally shifting slightly, but never speaking. Her eyes held a quiet intelligence, as if she were assessing every move, learning, understanding.
Elias felt something odd. He was not just repairing her ship. He was communicating with her, though without words.
Finally, the lights on the life support console stabilized. The chamber hummed with energy. The air grew warmer, breathable, and the alien's breathing evened out. She lifted her head slightly, and for the first time, she spoke. The voice was soft, melodic, and unlike any sound Elias had ever heard, yet he understood the meaning intuitively. It was an invitation, a recognition. "Who are you?" he asked cautiously, not expecting an answer he could comprehend. She did not respond immediately. Instead, she rose slowly, the injuries evident, but no longer life-threatening. Her eyes met his, and in that moment, Elias understood something profound. This was not a being who needed to be saved. This was a ruler, a queen, and she had allowed a human, a creature of humble origin and limited power, to restore her when even advanced alien science had failed. Elias took a step back, unsure of protocol or etiquette. He had no experience with royalty, alien or otherwise. Yet, the connection was unmistakable. A mutual understanding formed between them, silent but powerful. The queen studied him as one might study a puzzle, and he met her gaze, aware of the unspoken truth. He had crossed a line few humans ever had. The sound of distant movement echoed through the wreckage. Sensors outside the ship began detecting foreign signals. Other ships approaching, scanning. Elias realized they were not alone in this sector. Whatever ancient forces or opportunistic scavengers lurked here had noticed the reactivation of the vessel. The stakes had just escalated. Despite the looming danger, Elias felt a surge of determination. He could not abandon her. Not now, not after bringing her back to life. The Queen's presence, her silent trust, demanded that he act, and he did not hesitate. He moved to secure the remaining systems, rerouting power, stabilizing propulsion modules, and preparing the ship for immediate departure. His human ingenuity was his weapon, and it was sufficient to hold back the tide of unknown threats for now. Minutes stretched into hours, but finally, the ship hummed steadily. Systems that had been dead for decades flickered alive, and lights bathed the chamber in a gentle glow. The Queen rose fully now, uninjured in her posture if not in appearance, and turned to Elias. Her eyes, bright and intelligent, softened as she spoke once more, her tone calm, deliberate, and almost inviting. "Come along, human," she said softly. The words were simple, yet they carried weight beyond comprehension. It was an offer, a test, and perhaps a promise. Elias nodded, understanding that whatever lay ahead would take him far beyond the lonely salvage missions of his past. He would step into the unknown, guided by instinct, courage, and the strange, unspoken bond he had forged with a being of immense power. As he prepared to follow, Elias glanced back at the wreckage field they were leaving behind. Stars shimmered coldly, distant and indifferent. But for the first time in his life, Elias felt that he had a purpose greater than survival. He had fixed what others deemed unfixable, and in doing so, had become part of a story that might shape the galaxy. The Queen's hand remained extended, her gaze unwavering, and Elias took a deep breath, ready to step forward into a new chapter, one where humanity's ingenuity could meet alien might and leave a mark on the stars.
The engines roared to life, and the ancient vessel reborn through human hands began to drift forward.
Elias felt the vibration through his bones, the hum of energy, the sense of potential. He was no longer merely a man among the stars. He was a human who had dared to reach beyond his species' limits. And for the first time, he understood that even the smallest spark of ingenuity could ignite a flame that the galaxy could not ignore. And so, the human stepped forward, following the alien queen into the unknown, ready for whatever dangers, mysteries, and wonders awaited them in the vast, silent reaches of space.
The stars stretched endlessly around them as Elias Mercer followed the alien queen through the bridge of her massive ship.
The vessel no longer seemed broken. Its systems thrummed with life, lights dancing along the curved walls, and soft hums resonating through the floor. Elias had never seen technology like this, yet he had somehow understood enough to bring it back from the edge of death. Every panel he had touched now pulsed as if the ship itself were grateful. Queen Valeth moved with fluid grace, her presence commanding yet strangely unthreatening. She had taken the central console, her hands hovering over controls Elias could not identify. Symbols glowed and shifted beneath her fingers, patterns of energy that seemed almost alive. Despite his human limitations, Elias could sense the immense power this ship possessed. It was a floating fortress, capable of surviving storms that would obliterate most vessels. But more than that, it was intelligent, its systems responding to both of them in subtle ways. Elias had no experience with diplomacy or interstellar politics. He was not a soldier. He was just a human who could fix things. Yet, somehow, he had become entwined in a story far larger than any human had ever been. He watched Queen Valeth work silently, realizing that every motion was precise, every decision weighed carefully. She had the calm confidence of someone used to command, someone who had borne the weight of empires. And yet, she did not give him orders. Not really. Instead, she allowed him to act, observing and occasionally shifting a console here or there, giving him room to apply his human ingenuity. Hours passed in this rhythm. Elias patched systems the Queen could not repair herself, short circuits in auxiliary engines, damaged power conduits, and structural weaknesses in the hull. Every adjustment he made was a risk. The technology was alien, beyond human comprehension, yet his instincts guided him. When he doubted himself, he relied on what humans had relied upon for centuries: intuition, trial and error, and a stubborn refusal to fail. Finally, a soft chime echoed through the ship. The central display shifted to reveal a holographic map of nearby space. It showed distant sensors moving, ships appearing and disappearing at the edges of detection. Elias realized that someone, or something, had noticed the ship's reactivation. "Enemy vessels," he said cautiously, turning to the Queen. She nodded slightly. Her eyes, luminous and intelligent, followed the holographic display. There was no panic in her gaze, only observation. "They are scouts," she said, her voice soft but resonant, carrying authority without aggression. "They expect an unarmed, helpless wreck. They will be surprised." Elias frowned. He had faced hostile forces before, pirates and scavengers in remote systems, but never anything like this. "If they realize what this ship can do," his voice trailed off. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Valeth's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Let them discover it," she said. "We have time to prepare." Time. Elias realized that the word itself felt different here. On his human worlds, time was measured in hours, days, weeks. Here, it was a tool, a weapon, a resource to be applied strategically. He began to understand why this being, this queen, had survived centuries of conflict. She did not rush. She calculated. Together, they worked. Elias repaired, rerouted, and reinforced. Biolith adjusted and commanded. It was an unspoken partnership, one that transcended language. The alien system seemed to respond not just to commands, but to intention, recognizing Elias's human persistence as a force to be respected. The first scout vessel arrived at the edge of the sensor range. It was sleek and black, designed to intimidate, but as it approached, its scanners blinked erratically. Something about the Queen's ship confused its systems. Elias watched the readings with fascination. He had created the effect unintentionally, simply by patching circuits in ways that made sense to him. Human sense. But made no sense to alien engineering protocols. Valeth observed quietly. "Your mind works differently," she said softly. "It is." Elias shrugged. Unpredictable is one way to survive. The scout vessel made a cautious pass, sending out pulses of energy to scan the Queen's ship. The pulses were absorbed, deflected, and redirected in ways the aliens had not anticipated. Systems that should have been standard security measures now acted strangely, confusing the attackers. Elias realized he had unintentionally created a defense mechanism, one that the Queen herself had not known could exist. "You are remarkable," Vela said, and there was a note of approval in her voice that made Elias stiffen. No one had ever said anything like that to him. Not in school, not in the scrapyards, not even among his peers in the human spaceports. He had survived, yes, but recognition from an alien queen was something else entirely.
As the hours continued, the Queen shared fragments of her story. Elias listened, piecing together information like a puzzle. She had been betrayed by her own council, her empire fractured from within. She had fled to the edge of known space where the odds of survival were slim. Her fleet had been destroyed, her allies scattered or imprisoned. The ship he had repaired was her last sanctuary, the vessel she had hoped might carry her to safety or into legend. Elias felt the weight of it all. He was just a human, insignificant in the grand scale of the galaxy. Yet here he was, repairing a ship that could decide the fate of entire star systems. The responsibility was immense, but it did not intimidate him in the way it might have. Instead, it focused him, made him sharper, more aware. "Why? Help me?" Violeth asked. One moment, her voice calm but curious. Elias paused, considering. "Because it needed fixing," he said finally. "And because you trusted me enough to survive." Valeth regarded him for a long moment. There was no doubt in her gaze, only understanding.
"You are..."
"Unlike any human I have encountered," she said. "You are not reckless. You are not weak."
"You adapt!"
He smiled faintly. Adaptation was survival. Humans had survived countless wars, disasters, and the vacuum of space itself because they could adapt. Now, it seemed, that trait had drawn the attention of a being far more powerful than anything he had ever imagined. The scout vessel made a second pass, more cautious this time, attempting to probe deeper. Valeth activated a few controls, her hands moving across alien panels with the ease of centuries of practice. The ship responded, its systems aligning in a defensive pattern. Elias watched, fascinated. He had repaired the core, patched the engines, and reinforced the hull. But he had no idea the ship could operate with such precision. The Queen's touch brought it to life, beyond the capabilities of any human design. Minutes stretched into hours. The scout ship withdrew, apparently confused and wary. Elias exhaled, tension leaving his body. Vela's eyes softened. She had survived countless battles, yet there was a subtle shift in her demeanor. Perhaps for the first time in decades, she had hope. The ship drifted through the void, its engines humming gently. The stars beyond were distant and indifferent, yet Elias felt connected to them in a way he never had before. He was no longer just a human drifting alone in the galaxy. He was part of something greater, something alive, something that might shape the fate of civilizations. Valeth approached him quietly. "You have given me more than life," she said softly. "You have given me choice." Elias blinked. Choice? He had not considered himself capable of granting anything to a being so powerful. Yet, here it was. He had repaired what others could not, solved problems that even alien minds had failed to fix, and in doing so, had altered the course of history without even knowing it.
"Come along," she said again, the same words as before, but now with a subtle command, tempered with respect.
There is much ahead that you do not yet understand. He nodded, realizing that the journey was far from over. The Queen's story, the fractured empire, the approaching enemies, all of it awaited them. And now, he was no longer a mere observer. He was a participant, a human, whose ingenuity could tip the balance in ways no one had anticipated. As the ship accelerated through the void, Elias worked alongside Vialith, learning, repairing, adapting. Every system he touched responded, every challenge tested him, and every success strengthened their unspoken bond. They were no longer just human and alien, engineer and queen. They were partners, allies in survival, and perhaps something more. Hours turned into days as they navigated through dangerous territory. Elias discovered alien navigation techniques, the subtle use of energy fields, and methods of detecting hidden threats. Valeth allowed him to make decisions, to suggest routes, to apply human reasoning in ways her kind had never considered. And with every choice, every repaired circuit, every calculated maneuver, the ship grew stronger, more alive, more formidable. Yet, outside the hull, danger lurked. Scouts, opportunistic raiders, and rival factions were spreading rumors of a ghost ship moving unpredictably through the edge of known space. Stories circulated of a queen returned from the dead, aided by a human whose cleverness confounded alien science. Elias could feel the weight of those rumors even as the ship glided silently through the void, knowing that they would soon face larger threats than scouts or pirates. And still, through it all, Valeth never faltered. Her calm presence grounded him. Her intelligence guided him. Her trust empowered him. Elias realized that this was more than repair, more than survival. This was a partnership that neither species could have predicted. A bond formed in the void where the stakes were life, empire, and legacy. As the human and the queen prepared for the next phase of their journey, Elias understood something profound. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Not after this. Not after he had touched the impossible and made it work. Not after he had stood beside a queen who had survived centuries and survived betrayal and found trust in a human engineer. The stars stretched endlessly, cold and silent, yet within the ship, life, ingenuity, and determination pulsed strongly. Elias Mercer was no longer alone. He was no longer insignificant. He had become something more, a force in a story far larger than himself, a participant in a journey that could shape the galaxy. And as the ship sailed onward, silently avoiding detection, Elias felt a surge of anticipation. The next challenges would be greater, the enemies more cunning, but he was ready. For the first time, he truly understood the meaning of survival, ingenuity, and partnership. And he knew that humanity, no matter how small or underestimated, could change the course of the stars. Elias Mercer had never felt more alive. Each passing moment aboard the alien ship was a lesson in precision, strategy, and survival. Queen Valeth's presence was a constant reminder that this journey was far beyond any human endeavor he had ever faced. Her ship, though repaired, remained a beacon of power, drawing attention from factions that would not forgive a queen's return. Elias felt the weight of responsibility pressing against him. Every decision, every repair, every subtle adjustment could mean the difference between survival and destruction. The map displayed by the ship's holographic interface was a tangle of stars, nebulas, and sensor readings. Enemy fleets were moving with careful precision, each vessel scanning the sectors ahead, searching for anomalies. Vialith hovered over the controls, her long fingers dancing over panels that Elias could barely comprehend. Yet even without fully understanding the alien technology, he could sense her plan unfolding. Every subtle flicker of light, every pulse of energy, was part of a grand design that only she could see. "We are not merely evading them," Valeth said quietly, her voice calm, measured. "We are guiding them, drawing them into positions where they will underestimate us." Elias nodded, absorbing the meaning behind her words. Humans often relied on brute force or sheer luck. Valeth relied on patience, foresight, and manipulation of the battlefield before it had even formed. It was a kind of warfare that Elias had never encountered, and yet he felt compelled to learn. He moved to the navigation console, attempting to merge human ingenuity with alien precision. "If we approach the nebula to the north," he suggested cautiously, "we can mask our energy signature. Their sensors will struggle to detect us." Valeth's eyes flickered to him, a glint of approval in her gaze. "Your suggestion is effective," she said.
Humans see patterns differently.
"You perceive possibilities that my centuries of experience may overlook." The nebula ahead was a dense cloud of gas and cosmic dust, swirling in patterns that disrupted communications and sensors. It was a dangerous region, filled with rogue asteroids and hidden gravitational anomalies, but it offered cover, an opportunity to evade detection and prepare for the battles ahead. Elias guided the ship through the swirling cloud, adjusting thrusters, compensating for pressure fluctuations, and recalibrating shields on the fly. The ship responded to his touch as if acknowledging the human's unique skill. Hours passed inside the nebula, tense but productive. The ship's engines hummed in harmony with its alien core. Valeth shared fragments of her history, explaining the betrayal that had fractured her empire. Her council, once loyal advisors, had conspired to remove her from power, scattering loyal forces and claiming her death. She had survived through cunning and foresight, but alone, her options were limited. Elias listened, absorbing every detail. His mind worked to connect fragments, considering possibilities that might allow them to regain advantage without direct confrontation. Humans had survived centuries in the shadows, relying on ingenuity and adaptability. Now, those same traits were tools in a galaxy far more dangerous than anything he had known. "Your empire is fractured," Elias said softly. "But even in pieces, it is still powerful. You can use that to your advantage." Valeth regarded him thoughtfully. "Yes, but trust is rare. Loyalty is rarer. I must rebuild without revealing my return too soon."
The wrong move could ignite war. I am not yet ready to fight.
The stakes were immense. He had never commanded fleets or negotiated treaties, yet he felt that his role, though small, was crucial. His repairs, his unconventional solutions, his human perspective. These were forces that could shift outcomes in ways no one had anticipated.
As they moved deeper into the nebula, the sensors detected subtle disturbances, trails of ships attempting to intercept them.
Elias worked alongside Valeth, analyzing trajectories and calculating safe paths. They encountered a group of scouts, sleek ships designed for speed and stealth, moving as if confident in their superiority. Elias tightened his grip on the console. Valeth's voice was calm but resolute.
Let them follow us. They will underestimate what lies ahead.
Elias felt a mix of apprehension and excitement. Humans often thrived under pressure, thinking quickly and acting decisively. The alien queen understood timing in a way that amplified every human action. Together, they formed a partnership that combined intuition with strategy, instinct with foresight. The scouts approached, their sensors probing, sending pulses that Elias worked to scramble or redirect. The ship's systems responded unpredictably to human adjustments, creating confusion among the enemy vessels. Shields flared, and engines pulsed in ways the aliens had not anticipated. The scouts hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Valeth's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "You have made the ship unpredictable," she said softly. "It is a strength humans possess naturally, and you have applied it here perfectly."
Elias felt a surge of pride.
Recognition from a queen, especially one as powerful as Valeth, was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was validation of his skills, yes, but also a glimpse into what humans could achieve when they faced the impossible. The scouts withdrew, But the sense of danger remained. Larger forces were moving, and soon they would encounter fleets capable of overwhelming them if they were unprepared. Elias knew that every decision, every repair, every calculation mattered. One misstep could lead to disaster. Baelith turned to him. You have proven yourself capable, human. But the challenges ahead will test more than your skill with machines. You must learn to see the galaxy as I do. Patterns within patterns, possibilities within possibilities. Only then can we survive what comes next.
Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words.
The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with beings who underestimated humans at every opportunity. Yet that underestimation was a strength, a tool that could be used to their advantage. Over the next several days, they navigated the nebula, avoiding detection while simultaneously observing enemy movements. Elias learned quickly, adjusting human logic to alien systems, predicting scout behaviors, and optimizing the ship's responses. Baelith allowed him freedom, guiding subtly rather than issuing orders, creating an environment where human creativity thrived alongside alien precision. During moments of calm, Baelith shared more of her knowledge. She taught him about energy manipulation, alien tactical maneuvers, and methods of communication that relied on subtle signals rather than spoken language. Elias absorbed these lessons, realizing that survival required not only skill but understanding, not only action but perception. One evening, as the nebulous gases glowed with soft colors outside the viewports, Elias reflected on how far he had come. He was no longer the solitary human engineer drifting through the stars. He was part of a story larger than himself, entwined with a queen whose survival and influence could shape civilizations. His ingenuity had revived her ship, and in doing so, had opened doors to possibilities he had never imagined. Violet approached, her steps silent on the polished floor. She did not speak immediately, merely observing him as he worked on recalibrating the auxiliary engines. Finally, she said, "You are learning quickly, faster than most humans would. It is impressive."
Elias smiled faintly. "I have a good teacher." Her lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile.
Perhaps you are simply human. Humans survive because they adapt. You apply that instinct here, and it amplifies everything. The words struck him. Survival, adaptation, ingenuity. These were qualities humans often overlooked in themselves. Yet here, in the far reaches of space, these traits were not only useful, but extraordinary. Elias felt a sense of pride that had nothing to do with ego. It was the pride of being part of something greater than himself, something that defied expectations, something that could influence the course of empires. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected an anomaly ahead. A larger fleet was approaching, far more advanced than the scouts. Their numbers were significant, their formation precise. Elias felt a surge of tension. This was no longer a test or a minor skirmish. This was a real threat, capable of overwhelming even the Queen's powerful ship if they were unprepared. Baelith moved with calm efficiency. Her hands danced across the controls, activating shields, rerouting energy, and preparing weapon systems Elias had only begun to understand. He adjusted the engines and auxiliary systems, fine-tuning responses to maximize performance. Together, they worked in a seamless rhythm. Human intuition and alien mastery combining in a way neither could have achieved alone. As the fleet drew closer, Elias realized something profound. The galaxy had underestimated them. A human and an alien queen, navigating impossible challenges together, had created something unpredictable, something dangerous, something that could change the balance of power. Baelith turned to him, her eyes bright and resolute. "We face them together."
"Your skills, my knowledge. Together, we will show them the cost of underestimating what they do not understand."
Elias felt a surge of determination. Fear had no place here, only focus, strategy, and trust. He had survived this far by relying on human ingenuity and resilience. Now, that same ingenuity would face its greatest test. The stars stretched endlessly before them, indifferent and silent. Yet within the ship, life and determination pulsed stronger than ever. The approaching fleet was formidable. But Elias and Violet had something no one else expected: unpredictability, unity, and the combined force of human instinct and alien precision. As the first enemy ships appeared on the horizon, Elias took his position, ready to act, ready to adapt, and ready to survive. The Queen's hand rested lightly on the control panel, her gaze unwavering. Together, they were no longer merely human and alien. They were a force the galaxy had not yet comprehended, a team capable of rewriting what was thought possible. And as the void of space stretched endlessly, the next chapter of their journey began. A confrontation that would test courage, skill, and trust, proving that even in the cold depths of the universe, human ingenuity could shine brighter than the stars themselves. The fleet appeared on the horizon like a dark cloud, stretching across the void with coordinated precision. Elias Mercer's heart beat faster, but not with fear. He was ready. Years of human survival instincts, ingenuity, and stubborn determination had prepared him for this moment. Next to him, Queen Valeth moved with serene confidence, her hands gliding over controls that pulsed with alien energy. This was the moment that would decide not just their fate, but the future of her fractured empire. Elias studied the enemy formation. They were disciplined, heavily armed, and numerous. A direct confrontation would be suicide. But the humans had a saying: fight smart, not hard. He began to adjust the ship's systems, rerouting energy to shields in unpredictable pulses, while fine-tuning propulsion to allow sudden shifts in trajectory. The ship responded instantly, adapting in ways the alien scouts could not anticipate. Valeth observed silently, her luminous eyes following every adjustment. She was calculating as always, considering the risks, the possibilities, and the outcomes. "You have learned quickly," she said softly. "Your mind sees options that my centuries of experience might miss." Elias allowed himself a brief smile. Recognition from a queen was rare enough, but praise for human intuition felt extraordinary. "We survive because we adapt," he replied.
That's what humans do. The first wave of enemy ships advanced. They unleashed pulses of energy designed to disable systems instantly, but Elias had already anticipated their approach.
The alien vessel twisted and shifted with uncanny unpredictability, deflecting energy pulses and sending back interference that confused enemy sensors. The scouts faltered, unable to understand the sudden changes. Valeth's lips curved slightly, approvingly. "Yes. Continue. Force them to underestimate you." Elias adjusted the engines, sending microbursts that altered the ship's path subtly but effectively. The alien fleet reacted with delay, their calculations thrown off by moves that made no logical sense in their protocols. A few ships collided, minor explosions flashing across the void. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. As the enemy scrambled, Elias noticed something critical. Their formation had a weakness, a gap between the front lines and the heavier assault ships. It was a place where a concentrated strike could cause maximum disruption. He turned to Valeth, pointing at the holographic display. "There," he said. "If we hit the gap with everything we've got, we can break their formation before they realize it." Violet studied the display, nodding slowly. "Yes." "But it must be precise. One mistake, and the consequences will be catastrophic." They moved together in silent coordination. Elias adjusted the trajectory, rerouted energy to the weapon systems, and prepared the auxiliary engines for a sudden forward burst. Valeth's commands were subtle but decisive, activating shields and weapon arrays with precise timing. Their combined efforts turned the ship into a living weapon, a force that moved unpredictably, yet strategically. The strike was executed flawlessly. Energy beams lanced through the gap in the enemy formation, targeting critical systems. The fleet staggered, their coordinated movements disrupted. Confusion spread among the enemy pilots, giving Violet's ship a clear advantage. Elias worked frantically, maintaining shields, recalibrating weapons, and anticipating counterattacks. Each move was a test of speed, skill, and intuition. Every second mattered. The alien queen, once a solitary figure who had survived betrayal and loss, now relied on a human partner. And Elias thrived under the pressure, his mind sharp and focused. As the enemy scrambled to regroup, Valeth issued precise commands. Focus on their communications. We will intercept their orders and use them against them. Elias adjusted the ship's systems, tapping into the alien network, a complex web of energy and information. Using human ingenuity, he exploited gaps in their security protocols, intercepting messages and feeding false data. Enemy ships began turning in the wrong directions, chasing illusions, while Valeth's ship remained unscathed. Hours passed in tense coordination. The alien fleet, despite their numbers and advanced technology, was being outmaneuvered by the unpredictable combination of human creativity and queenly precision. Each victory was calculated, minimizing risk while maximizing disruption. Slowly, the tide turned. Violet's voice broke through the tense hum of the ship's systems. They are retreating. They believe the enemy's strength is greater than it is. Maintain the deception. Elias nodded. His hands moved rapidly across the consoles, creating simulated reinforcements and energy signatures to exaggerate the ship's apparent power. The enemy fleet faltered, then retreated, leaving the path ahead open. For the first time in decades, Valeth allowed herself a small smile. You have done well, human. Without you, the outcome might have been far different. Elias leaned back slightly, exhausted but exhilarated. We did it together. That's what matters. The ship moved silently through the void, leaving the scattered enemy ships behind. Stars glimmered faintly through the observation windows, indifferent to the battles unfolding among them. Yet inside, the vessel hummed with renewed life, the result of human hands, alien mastery, and shared trust. Valeth turned to Elias, her expression serious.
The Empire is fractured, yes, but hope has returned.
We can rebuild. We can reclaim what was lost.
Elias considered her words. He had started this journey as a simple salvage engineer, a human drifting among the stars. Now, he had become a participant in history, a partner to a queen whose survival depended on his ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. Where do we start? He asked. Valeth's eyes gleamed with determination. We begin with the loyal worlds. They must see that I have returned, and that we are strong. We will gather allies quietly, preparing for the restoration of order. The traitors who fractured the Empire will face justice, but it must be calculated. Patience and strategy will guide us, not rash action. Elias nodded, understanding the wisdom in her approach. Humans often acted on impulse, but survival required more than instinct. It required thought, planning, and timing. And now, he was part of a plan that combined human adaptability with alien foresight. Days turned into weeks as they navigated from one system to another. Elias repaired damaged satellites, recalibrated alien communications arrays, and helped Valeth manage reconnaissance missions. The Queen allowed him to make decisions, to contribute ideas, and even to test strategies. Human creativity, once underestimated, proved invaluable in navigating the fractured political landscape of her empire. They encountered worlds loyal to the Queen, planets that had been abandoned or oppressed by her council's betrayal. Elias and Valeth coordinated relief efforts, repairing infrastructure, restoring communications, and offering protection. The people welcomed the return of their queen, and Elias observed how human ingenuity could amplify the queen's influence. One evening, as they traveled through a quiet sector, Valeth turned to Elias. "You have changed my perspective," she said softly.
I once believed strength alone ruled the galaxy. Now I see that adaptability, trust, and ingenuity are just as powerful.
Elias smiled faintly. That's what humans do. We survive because we adapt. We build, repair, and find ways forward when none seem possible. Valeth's expression softened. Then humanity and my empire have much to learn from each other. And perhaps we can accomplish more together than I ever imagined. Their journey continued, facing smaller skirmishes, uncovering loyal allies, and rebuilding networks. Each challenge tested them, but each success reinforced the bond between human and queen. Elias saw the power of human ingenuity in every repair, every improvised tactic, every decision that defied expectations. Valeth's confidence in him grew, and with it, her vision for a restored empire that valued adaptability and foresight above rigid control. Finally, the moment arrived to confront the remaining traitors who had shattered her empire. Viola's forces, quietly strengthened by loyal worlds and clever strategies, surrounded the stronghold of her betrayers. Elias worked alongside her, coordinating systems, creating diversions, and ensuring that every move was calculated for maximum effect. The confrontation was swift but decisive. The traitors, confident in their strength, underestimated the Queen's return and the humans' ingenuity. Systems they thought secure were compromised, their communications disrupted, and their forces outmaneuvered. Valeth reclaimed her throne, her authority unchallenged, and the Empire began the process of healing. Elias stood beside her, watching the aftermath. He had started as a lone engineer, drifting among the stars. Now he had become an integral part of an empire's restoration, a human whose skill and adaptability had turned the tide. Valeth turned to him, her expression soft but firm. "You have done more than repair a ship. You have restored hope. You have shown the galaxy the value of human ingenuity."
Elias felt a sense of pride he had never known. "We did it together," he said.
Humans and aliens working as one. That's how it works. Valeth nodded, her luminous eyes reflecting both strength and trust. "Yes, and perhaps this is only the beginning. Humanity has much to teach the stars, and I have much to learn from you." As the rebuilt empire celebrated the return of its queen, Elias realized something profound. Humans, though small and often underestimated, had a power beyond technology or weaponry. Their creativity, adaptability, and resilience could influence even the mightiest of civilizations. And now, among the stars, the human who had repaired the impossible had found purpose, respect, and a place in a story that would be remembered for generations. The ship moved steadily through space, carrying Queen Valeth and Elias toward a future shaped by trust, strategy, and human ingenuity. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, yet they faced it together. And as the stars stretched endlessly ahead, Elias understood that humanity's impact could be as enduring as any empire, as profound as any legacy, and as unexpected as a human repairing an alien queen's ship and changing the course of history forever.